There is so much to get to, and I don't even know where to start other than you heard the call, Jason Benetti. We have the TCU call with Brian Estridge, who's phenomenal at what he does. But Paul Catalina, that win, no matter what happens this week or in a bowl game, that win would have put at least a little bit of a better taste on the 2022 season if you're Baylor. And now you're looking at could be 6-7 because I don't know how you get back off the canvas, although they surely did in that game Saturday.
Well, we'll see who they draw in a bowl game and what the matchup is there because they'll have time to really prepare for that one. But I think it goes from, one extreme to the next of, you're about to ruin your rival season and then they just very smoothly took it right away from you. And that's kind of been TCU late in games is that field goal was a microcosm of the season of everything's fine until there's zeros on the clock, right? So as long as there's time on the clock and you're within striking distance, you can win the game. And that's how they approached it. I would say that at the end of it, what you have to do is what's the difference between Baylor and TCU? And Baylor should know this because a year ago they were that team that in the moment when you have a minute and a half left and you need to get one first down, they got it. This year they didn't get it. TCU in the games this year, when they need to get a first down, when they need to get the ball here, when they need to get it out of bounds, whatever they need to do in that moment to win the game, they do it. You've got to calmly walk the field goal team on or run the field goal team on the field and kick a 41-yarder at the end. They did it.
It was flawless what they did, Sonny Dykes, and what TCU did. Craig Smoak, we're there. It was a phenomenal game. Yeah, neither team, that wasn't flawless. That's why it was a great game, because it's never a perfect game. But what an ending. It was as if it got silent on one end and explosion in the purple, who had a great crowd at that game at McLean Stadium.
Yeah, I mean, it's not if. That's what happened. I mean, yeah, there was a huge explosion by the Frogs fans there in attendance at the end of that game because of, as big of a play in that program's history as there has been in recent history. I mean, this is a magical year. You can talk all about what Patterson won previously or what others have, what Francione did back in the day, but, they're unbeaten with 1 week to go in the regular season and not in some, Western Athletic Conference or anything like that. It's the Big 12. I mean, this is the college football playoff era, and they are 2 games away from playing in the college football playoff and being the first non-Oklahoma Big 12 team to get there. Nobody's gone undefeated in the Big 12 regular season. They can do that against a team that, quite frankly, is just an embarrassment on offense right now in Iowa State. I mean, they are dreadful offensively. So I have no doubts that TCU wins that game this weekend. It's in Fort Worth. I understand Iowa State's defense, but Tech had to score 14 points to win this weekend. I feel confident TCU can manage that. And I know crazy things can happen, but I'm just not banking on it with the Cyclones at this point. So TCU staring dead ahead at a 12-0 record, and then just whoever they match up with in the Big 12 title game, which, yes, could still be Texas. But the favorite would be right now Kansas State, obviously, if they just handle their business against KU, who got whooped this past weekend by Texas. So still some things to sort out there. But, yeah, TCU just have to give them all the credit in the world for being resilient and for never, ever giving up. As cliche and corny as that can sound sometimes, I mean, it's not that cliche or corny when you realize that's what's taking them to 11-0 right now, is just continuing to believe no matter what the circumstances are, no matter what the score is, no matter how much time's left, no matter where they're playing. They don't let all that outside BS infiltrate them, or even if they do, they don't let it affect them. It's the complete opposite of this Baylor team, who every time we even start to have any expectations for them, it's like there's alarm bells that go off of uh-oh, this is about to, go sideways because, people are, paying attention or putting too much on their shoulders or what have you. And just for the Baylor side of things, man, let me off this ride this year. I mean, this season has been not awful, not horrible in any type of way. There's been some memorable moments, but every single time they turn the corner or seem like they're going to, or every time they have a big opportunity, for the most part, they just don't know how to handle it, and or they just can't seal the deal. And Saturday, it was there for the taking, man. I mean, that game was as there for the taking as you could possibly have. Get a first down, and they couldn't do it.
On back-to-back drives.
Get another here. That we took that away from you. You didn't get that. Guess what? Extra Christmas present. Here's another opportunity. all you have to do to get a win that would basically reverse the entire outlook of your season is get one first down. That's all. You almost got close this last time. Here's another shot at it, and they still couldn't do it. And yes, you give credit to TCU's defense, but this is also symptomatic of just this entire year and their shortcomings. And I've been saying it, like, they're going to look back at some of these games when the year's over, whether it's in a month from now or like 2 years from now, they're going to go like, golly, man, like we really just had so many opportunities and they could never, ever just get over that hump.
Especially when that maturity hits on some of these guys. When they do, because there's going to be a lot of guys that I know fans are mad at right now because things aren't going well, that are going to mature and do great things. But they're going to look back on it and be like, oh, this is why what we should have done. This is the first down. That's what you hope. I want to play these two calls because I do think it's a microcosm of TCU and how people from the outside see things and people from the inside see things. So here is Jason Benetti's call. You heard it in the open. I want to play it again, and then we'll have Brian Estridge's call.
This is the ending. TCU has the ball. This is the last few seconds, about 25 seconds or so as the clock is running. They're about to run another play, or they just ran another play.
Yeah.
And now it's a total scramble, emergency mode for the unbeaten Horned Frogs. Hypno-Toad in a hurry. Griffin Kell for the win. TCU is undefeated still. Wow.
Okay, so that's Jason Benetti and then Brock Heward at the end there, who are great. They're great. And it was described, right, as a mad dash, emergency mode. I want you to hear, and this is from the Learfield Sports Network for Brian Estridge, our friend. Brian's done this a long time. He's does a great job. He doesn't need flowers from me for that, but I did text him about that this morning saying how smooth it was. But this is pretty much how TCU hears it in their head
and
on the field.
Listen to Brian, as calm as he was, too.
Yeah.
Snap comes, handoff goes, right-hand side, it's DiMaccardo. Down he goes in the 23, so you got to get your field goal unit out, 15 seconds. Plenty of time, take your time, fellas. You're 10, relax. You're at 9, Griffin Kell. 41-yard effort, middle of the field for the win. Snap, hold, kick Griffin Kell, plenty on it, and Griffin Kell has nailed it. Bow! How about that, boys? The Frogs survive here in Waco. Kell nails it.
They have won 4 consecutive times since 61-58 in Waco, Texas, including that one on Saturday afternoon.
Yeah, but I just think that you see that like that, and from the inside, you got time. They knew it. Like, just knew that was how it was going to be. They had plenty of time. And then if you watch the video with his voice over it, you can see TCU is not scrambling at all. They're hustling for sure, but it wasn't like they didn't know it was going on. There wasn't a guy running on the field late. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. They were totally ready for it, and they walked out there and did it. And that's what Sonny Dykes has done to this team.
It was a phenomenal moment. If a guy trips, if an offensive lineman flinches, game's over. There was the question about the substitution rule. That's not in play when a team is lining up to kick a field goal on the last play of a half and or on the last play of the game. But, Craig, you nailed it. You could feel the frustration. And if you are Baylor, there was one play on the final drive that led to the field goal. The Duggan quarterback-like draw where he had to avoid one player who really wasn't in his way that got about 15 yards or so. Then it was over. You could kick the field goal. But there was a play, I think, either right before that, I don't remember, second down it may have been, when Duggan was pressured, scrambled, and Bryson Jackson, who's a hell of an athlete, was chasing him to the sideline, and he couldn't get Duggan before he was able to basically spill out of bounds. That right there is a huge moment on Duggan hustling to get to the sticks and the sideline. The clock stopped. You didn't have to waste a play with a spike of the ball. You didn't lose any extra seconds. Max Duggan over 300 yards. He wasn't perfect, but on those drives, that drive right there, he hit and did whatever he had to do. Tough loss, brutal loss for Baylor, and they've had a couple of 2 or 3 of those this year. They have Texas on Friday. And my question about that is, and I was asked this by a UT podcast with Chip Brown over the weekend. So you did get up off the canvas from what was humiliating, having your soul taken from you on Saturday by Kansas State. They did. I mean, that would have been a hell of a nice win. And they did almost everything they could within the reasons of knowing that nothing's perfect. Emotionally, get back up for a game that doesn't have anything on the line for you. It does for Texas, perhaps. In fact, it does. I don't know, and I'm not going to question whether they're going to give it full throttle, and I know it's UT, everybody gets – I don't know. Can Dave Aranda and his staff do that back-to-back weeks? One from when you were humiliated, that's easier to get yourself back up, or one right here where you actually had somebody reach inside of your chest and take out your football heart? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm tired of playing mind games with this team, and the whole psychological aspect of them is puzzling and, could be its own talk show, seems like, on a week-to-week basis. So at this stage, I'm not sure if they're able to or not. I think they can. Yeah, I think they can absolutely get up and go play. I don't think necessarily every week has to be some build-up and some grand, like, this is what you're fighting for. All those Dave Aranda makes it sound like they almost have to have that. And then again says how it's a distraction. Like the whole, well, it's big noon kickoff. It's a night game. It's wearing all black. It's a top 25 opponent. I can't tell on any given weekend whether they hyperventilate over that or whether it becomes a distraction because they're feeling themselves too much after a couple of wins. I don't know. I would expect this team will show up in Austin knowing it's their last regular season game and be ready to play and shoot. They'll be on the road, so they'll probably feel more comfortable when all is said and done. But, Texas is certainly going to have something to play for. I would think just seeing that, Longhorn logo, knowing it's the last time you're going to play those guys, for many, that would be enough to fire you up. But, I guess there's always the chance that they could be deflated at this point. I would sure hope not, because it's not like there's, nothing left to play for still. There's pride. There's, not wanting to finish below 500. There's, just the fact that you'd like to go out on a high note for many of these seniors. And, I think that now you're looking at, the possibility of 6-6 coming up this weekend or 7-5 coming up this weekend. And then depending on that, you could win 8 games at most, or you could win still just the 6 games you've already won, which means that you could go like 2 months without winning a single game to close out the season. So I would hope that would be enough motivation to get you back up off of the canvas. But I started to write this in an article, and I didn't want to make it 2,000 words. But how do you guys look at this year as far as failure, disappointment? Because not failure, but just disappointment. Because I look at it and I think it's fair to have expected some extra losses after 12-2. I think it was fair to expect there would be a little bit of a downslope. But at this point, man, this is even beyond. I don't care how many seniors you replaced, and you lost Jalen Petrie and JT Woods and all these guys. You also had a bunch of guys coming back, and I understand that there were some gaps to have to fill over the course of the first few weeks. But you look up, they're 6-5, and very likely going to be 6-6, and then who knows, maybe 6-7. This does beg the question of when people talk about reloading a Big 12 title team. I don't think you just do that right now in the way that Baylor is constructed. But you need to be closer to that than closer to you win a Big 12 title game and then you go all the way back to 500 ball and barely making a bowl game or making one and then not winning any other games after that. There is an expectation, and I don't think that expectation should be every time you win that it takes you a couple years to get geared back up. But that's what this almost feels like is, they just need to build it back up. And I don't know if that's fair criticism or not, or that's just part of the process and they're still building to get there. But my question would be, how do you build to get there then from here? Because even the most negative Nellies, I can't imagine had them finishing much worse than they're probably going to end up finishing, and that's where they're going to finish.
I think it's fair to say that you had the first year, which was a cluster, at 2-7. The COVID, whatever, a lot of teams, even like Penn State and a couple other teams that are, pretty good programs went in the tank. Then last year, Dave Aranda's a genius, and a lot of it is also his personality and his type of personality and how deep thinking he is. But let's not forget that there were a lot of guys on that team that were a part of a previous coaching staff, and they had some play better even than they did under a previous coaching staff because they were a year older. They had a lot of 5th or 6th year type players. They had NFL-style players. This team had 3 things you want: offensive line depth, quality; defensive line depth and quality; and you had a quarterback coming back that was your starter that you chose back in the spring. And that's another topic we'll have with Blake Shapen at some point today. Ricky Thompson will join us at around 4:30 on that. To me, disappointing is at least the word of what this is. You win that game Saturday. You didn't. Forget about West Virginia. Forget about the other losses, Oklahoma State at home, whoever it was. You win that game yesterday, there's a different feel to this team no matter what you do in your last couple of games. Not because it's TCU, not because they're unbeaten, but because it would have been one hell of a nice win to close out your home schedule.
Yeah, and you're due to beat them at this point. Like it's silly how
Oklahoma State was due to beat Oklahoma after 100 and some years, and they've done it like 10 times. And they did do it last year. I know what
I'm sorry, but there's a big difference between Oklahoma and Oklahoma State and TCU and Baylor. There's several national championships difference in that series. So, I mean, I get what you're saying there, but yeah, credit to TCU. I'm not saying that comment either is like a Dave Aranda's, is he the guy? Like, I'm not saying that. That's not entering my brain in any way, shape, or form. I'll let other people have that conversation, which they do every time their team loses. All of a sudden, the coach is on the hot seat. I'm not that guy, but I do think he's got to look in the mirror again this year and go like what is this? What direction is this going? What is this going to be? Because I do think that the stage that you're sitting at right now, it's one thing to drop some games after the run you had last year, be totally understandable, but the fashion in which they're doing it and the rate at which they're doing it's just like, come on, like this is even beyond the worst kind of outcome that you could have expected, barring health issues.
Well,
you know,
in 2018, they go 7-6, win their last game after having blown a tire against TCU. They beat Texas Tech to get bowl eligible, win the bowl game. That's a completely different 7-6 because that's on the uptick. And then, of course, we know this is going backwards. And when you're picked to win, and this is one of the differences, and we can bitch and moan and complain and all that other stuff about blue bloods and the rankings and preseason polls and whatever else, there is something about being good year in and year out that's hard. Now, Baylor has been good 10 of the last 12 years. They have been, in some cases, on the edge of elite in some of those years. But 1-11, we understand the transition from the scandal and the coaching change. 2-7, okay, coaching transition and COVID. But they have been really good 10 of the last 12 years. And so this is a step back. It will be interesting to see who they are Friday, and then no matter who they play sometime in December in what will be a middle-of-the-pack or so bowl game. I don't know. But, yeah, you're right. We almost seem to grade this team based on psychology, based on emotions, based on this and that. There was a tweet from a player after the game. Hey, if you all, be careful. Watch number 2. You get off my quarterback's back. We saw that when Charlie Brewer and that team flamed out in 2020, and there's something going on, and you know what? It might be they damn sure shouldn't have been picked to win the Big 12.
Well, that's clear.
Yeah.
That's obvious. I think my question is you don't expect them to win 10 games every single year. I'm not that guy, but at what point do you reach a point where you're not going from 12-6? Where it's that precipitous of a fall off.
Can you go from 12 to 9?
Yeah.
And I think that would have been absolutely something that could have been expected this year, even 8-5, 8-4. I remember, I'll bring it up, Craig, when we gave our preseason predictions. Craig said 8-4. Some people on the board lost their mind. Where are the 4 losses going to come from? And then, you could have been wrong too. Sure. And we've been wrong before. When I always thought that, under even the years that they won Big 12 titles, okay, this would be a nice year, step up and win 9. They won 11. There's no way in 2011 we expected them to go, 10-3. Hell, you were hoping to get back to a bowl for a second consecutive year. So we're going to be wrong and right on some of those things. But where are the 4 losses going to come from? Well, we found out there were 6 of them, or 5 of them, and there might be 6, and there might even be 7. The chat room is going on. Text line is 254-339-1122. Now, a couple of other notes, and Paul, great to have those highlights from both Benetti and Brian Estridge, who's as good as anyone gets in that business. There's some other college